So, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me today for another indie author interview. Today, I am joined by Trish D.W, who is the author of Crown of the Dying Embers, as well as the Ichor series. So, we have two series to kind of talk about today, which I'm so excited about. So, Trish, thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course, I'm happy to be here. It's my first interview.
Oh, awesome. So cool. So we can just kind of get right into it. So tell us a little bit about at what point you decided you wanted to be an author and what your path to publication was.
My family always has a running joke with this. So it started off where I loved writing scripts. So you'd see me all the time in recess. I'd be just writing scripts and I'd make all of my step siblings and siblings be a part of my movies. And it just, as soon as I really got into reading and loving reading, it just, progressed into writing books. So I've been writing as early as fourth grade, making everyone do my plays. And so I started off on Wattpad, it really was great experience and it helped me finesse my writing a lot more. And I am a special education teacher. And so there was a period of time where I had, I was like, I kind of want to make writing a more serious endeavor. And Wattpad did reach out to me about possibly publishing through their company. And I was like, okay, even if this doesn't work out, this is kind of my sign that I need to start publishing.
Mhm.
Like, I need to actually take this into account. And while they did ultimately turn down my book, it was still such a eye-opening experience of like, okay, I'm good enough to start really exploring this. So I took full advantage and I was like, okay, I'm going to start self-publishing.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about your writing process. So do you outline plot or do you kind of just write scenes organically and quilt together? What do you do?
I'm kind of plotter and pantser at the same exact time. Like I do a little blurb of both. It mainly starts with an idea. Like for the Ichor series, I wish I kept this poem. It started with a random poem I read about the power of bones and the power of scars, and it kind of like brought it together. I was like, huh, scars and scarifications. And so it just kind of went down that path. And I always wanted to write something with Greek mythology. So it kind of just one little thing just steamrolled everything. And that's how most of my books start, where Crown of the Dying Embers, I just happened to see that pre-made book cover. And I was like, ooh, this gives me Phoenix vibes. And then it just started a whole trickle effect with Phoenixes. So it just starts off with a small little thing and then it kind of blooms. And then I write a few chapters and then I'm like, okay, now I need to start planning it. So then I go a little bit more into detail. And I mainly plan the characters and then I kind of go with the plot. The characters are first and always first.
Cool, pretty cool. I mean, I started with the Ichor series, obviously. But then, I was like, ooh, there's something else. So then, I got book fairy this and it was like sitting on my shelf and I was like, no, I need to read it. I need to read it. So um it's really cool how I think like how you said that you start with the characters. So you like start by fleshing them out and then um do you kind of like I don't know, like some authors have said like, like they talk to me or like I, not, not in that way, but that sort of thing. And like they tell me like what I need to write and what I need to do. So tell me like, do you feel like that or like how does that kind of progress from like character to plot?
So I kind of always start with my main character. So it's always a small kernel of myself that I want to bring to life. I love from Crown of the Dying Embers, it's very much how can I make someone the complete opposite of me? And I kind of went that route because her and I, we couldn't be further apart. And so I started with her and just kind of went, okay, what is the exact opposite of what I do in this scenario? And
Mm,
kind of based her all on that. And then Saffron from the Ichor series was more of that innocence, like that more childlike side. And so I really start with that. And so I base those two off of completely different parts of myself and go from there with them. With the other people, um, yeah, it starts at first with a central idea of how they look. So I do appearance first, and then I'm like, okay, how do I think based on that, how they're going to act, how they're going to interact? Like Hattie from the Ichor series. I
mm,
started with a central idea of what she looked like, and it started with her like little witty banter and how kind of snarky she was. And it made me realize I was like, this is kind of like my sister. So I started more like, I'm gonna start writing kind of like my sister. And she is now, in my mind, one of my more fleshed out characters, because it was more of, I started with the smallest thing and then her appearance. And then I found some commonality with someone in my life and kind of went from there. And that's how I start with most of mine, and then bring some individuality with it.
That's cool. I think it's pretty neat that you kind of like discovered how you were writing her and maybe you were like doing it like unconsciously and then you made it conscious and you were like, no, like I'm gonna do that and like actively make that, her character arc. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, my sister, we always joke. I was like, for some reason, everyone else in my family and now my friends, they're maybe in it, but Nora, my sister, she's for some reason always in mine. I was like, I guess I just really need somebody like snarky in my stories, and she's the first that pops in my head.
Well, it definitely adds a different layer. Um,
Hmm.
so you said that you kind of always knew that you wanted to write something, Greek mythology inspired. So tell us like what you enjoy most about like writing in the fantasy genre generally or like about, Greek mythology.
So whenever I was a kid, I didn't actually like to read. Like it was very much, I was just like, nah, I'm good. Like, and I had this teacher, Miss Thompson, who one day she's like, you love history though, right? And I go, yeah, I love it. I think it's so cool. We're right now learning about Greek mythology in class. I go, and I think it's so cool. And she just plopped Percy Jackson down on my desk and she goes, now you're
Wow.
going to start to like reading. And so I think it was because fantasy is what made me first love reading, and so it got me on that path. And to me, characters are always my most important thing. And the plot, I always make sure my plot sound, but characters come first. And so I love that fantasy, I feel like, has the most fleshed out characters out of any genre. And I think that's why I love writing it so much.
Hmm. And it's funny that you say Percy Jackson because like like that's what got me into like reading as voraciously, I think. Like I would read here and there, but like Percy Jackson is like what started it all. So it's really funny that you say that. Um so what do you need in your writing space to stay focused? What helps you stay on task when you're writing?
Uh, recently, not much. But I will say my go-to, and this is another, I always take Phantom of the Opera into consideration. It is very much, if I cannot focus and changing space, changing how I write, anything, if nothing else is working, I just put Phantom of the Opera, the Gerard Butler one, on repeat, and I just listen to that, and it's most of the time does the trick, not always. But if that doesn't work, sometimes just physically writing in a notebook, that will help me too.
Cool, cool. And what's your kryptonite as a writer? What gets in your way?
Um, Definitely the middle. So like I'm very good at writing the beginning, and I'm pretty solid when it comes to writing the end. That middle part where a lot of it is just really going more into depth about the relationships between people, I always seem to get more distracted. And that is when I need Phantom of the Opera a lot more.
Mhm.
um, I think that was most with Crown of the Dying Embers. Like it's such a small book, so I thought it would be so easy just to go da 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 in the middle. And no, I really struggled on the middle on that one.
It's interesting how, like I think it's like when we get the idea, right? Like you're saying you're like you want to start and like you're like okay, like I that's what I can, get out. And then like you said when you get to the middle you're like, "Oh, okay. So like before I get to that end that I've, already thought about, I need to like figure out how we get there first." So,
Mhm.
it's interesting how to kind of navigate that. But I mean, obviously, you're doing it very well because you're publishing on is it, and maybe I'm saying it wrong, honorary?
Honorary. You're very, very
Honorary.
close.
Okay. So that's book 4 in that series. And then
Mhm.
the second one in Crown of the Dying Embers is coming out too.
Yes, that one right now I'm aiming for winter time. So I want to get the Ichor series done with first. And so I'm hoping to get the Ichor series, fingers crossed, done this summer. So then I can focus on other endeavors because I have Crown of the Dying Embers I need to finish. And then I have started a new fantasy series called Grecian Trials. And so it's going to be around like a 6-book series, kind of around that. So Yeah, I keeping myself busy for
Yeah.
sure.
Um, all right, so we can move on to the next part of our interview. So it's just going to be about, I mean, it could be about Crown or it could be about Ichor, whatever, whichever one you want to pick. Or we can kind of go in between. So if you had to describe either one of your books or series in one sentence or less, what is that sentence?
So I'll do it for Ichor first. Ichor is basically the gods have enslaved the world for 500 years until a girl jumpstarts an eon's old prophecy that can crumble the whole world. And then Crown of the Dying Embers, if a group of morally gray characters are forced to marry and try to kill each other every second of the day.
Very good, very good. Um, so this has always been the most difficult question for everybody. Who is your favorite character to write and why?
Funny enough, I don't think that's tricky. Well, I will say the hardest one is definitely in the Ichor series. It is Heart because Heart, she she is the whole she's basically the spine of the entire story. Like
Hmm?
she every single bit of hers has to have exact meaning, like because she's just one giant foreshadowing. So she's very difficult to write. The easiest to write is Saffron, but my favorite is Aries.
Hmm.
I love writing Aries. He to me is one of my most well-developed characters, him, Hattie, and Saffron. And so Aries has to win just because I love him so much. and, and he's so cute and traumatized and just broken and I just love him.
Did you take an inspiration from anybody or anything with Aries since, it sounds like he's really close to you?
So, with him it was interesting. I mainly just started with an idea of like, okay, let's just start with appearance, and I didn't expect for him to be a big character. I mainly just wanted him to be the bad guy. So I brought him in as the villain. And then I wrote the fountain scene in the first book where he's about to kill her and then he hesitates. And then he goes in this whole thing about how beautiful she is and how he couldn't find anyone that could be her mom. And I was like, oh no, I love him. And so he was not inspired by anybody. And that I think is what makes me love him so much
Hmm.
is the fact that I normally have to find that person. Like every other character, I have that person, and he's the only one that where there isn't. And I think that just makes him extra special in my mind.
Hmm. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Um, I know you kind of just touched on like the most challenging character to write, but just, and that, the middle is difficult. Is there anything else that you would say has been challenging about writing these books?
Um, I will say so when it comes to Crown of the Dying Embers, the one that was tricky with that is making sure because I want them all to be pretty short. I wanted them make I wanted to still make sure my world building was pretty intact because I wanted it to be a short, sweet, because I don't know about you, but I love finding a short book every once in a while I can just binge in one day and I'm good. I feel refreshed. And so I wanted that. It's just it's so difficult to make sure your world building is super well developed. And I think that's around 50,000 words. So I think that was one thing that was difficult for the Ichor series was making sure that what I envisioned was getting told in such a short period of time.
Mm. No, and I think I totally agree with you that, it's nice to kind of have like a short book in between like those really long, sweeping fantasies for sure.
Yes.
And I think that that's something that I really noticed in Crown is that like the world was fleshed out. Like it was like it felt like it was a whole story, right? And I'm always like iffy about novellas because I never know if that's going to be like fleshed out enough. And obviously this isn't a novella, but it it's on the shorter side and it's wonderful to see like the entire world. And I know that I messaged you about some characters as I was reading because I just loved it. um and so what is your favorite line or quote from either book?
Okay, so Igor series in the second book, Horcus. I love Hecate's line where she says, why do the fates give us soulmates if we're not destined for a happy ending? I love that. I think it just speaks on how layered she is as a character. And then for Crown of the Dying Embers, I really love when Victor says pleasure and pain are going to be my favorite fix once I'm done. Going to be your favorite fix once I'm done with you. I
Mm.
really liked that one because it just those two are so toxic. I think it just really encompasses that.
Do you find like with like either of those quotes, like, I mean, like you're writing that, you're making that up, like you like write something and you just have to like sit back from it and just be like, wow, like do you ever feel that way?
Yes. Especially when I'm editing. So like when
Mm.
I'll edit, I'll look at a certain line, I'm like, I wrote that. Oh, that's really cool. And then I'll read the following line and I go, ooh, I wrote that. That's not really cool.
It's funny that it's funny that, editing is, is obviously a process. You go through multiple rounds of editing. And just kind of like some advice that I've heard is just like get your first draft out, just do it. And then, worry about, what you need to do in editing stages later. Um, but it's interesting how like you can see one line and just be like, I absolutely like love that. And then and then you're like, oh, like I don't actually love that. And then you have to kind of figure out like, okay, what can I do to make myself like it more? You know?
Right. It's a journey.
And so you said that you kind of start with appearances of characters and trying to visualize like what they look like and things like that. So your main characters, do you have any casting ideas about actors or actresses that are out there?
Yes. So for Island Crown of the Dying Embers, I immediately think of, and I'm going to butcher her name. I know I am. Nicola Coughlan from Bridgerton.
Mm-hmm.
I think that she's just a perfect Isla. I think she'd absolutely kill it. Matthew Daddario for Victor. I think the hardest one is Riz because Riz, I just have such a perfect image of him in my head. And he to me is just holds such a special place in my heart. And I want him to be told so perfectly that like I'll look at characters, I'm like, actors, I'm like, sure. I don't know. So I don't have as full of an answer for him, but the mains definitely those two are in my head. And I think it's really tricky though because I always write plus size female leads, and there's not enough plus size female leads in Hollywood. So it's very, very difficult to find someone I envision. For Saffron, I found a model that I found on TikTok. Her name's Ella Halikas, and she's the best person I could picture, but it's just tricky because there's not enough representation for plus size women or men, for the record.
And totally. And I think like whenever I see like plus size rap or mental health rap or like neurodivergent rap, I'm just like always like, that's something that I need to read because, I mean, growing up, like you said, there's not a lot of representation. So you don't see people who look like
Mhm.
as far as, body and body shape and such. So I think like the first person that I was just like, oh wow, like she's doing it was Ashley Graham. Like, I don't know,
Me too.
something about her, I was just like, oh wow, like she's like, she's just doing it and like doing, I mean, Sports Illustrated, like, a lot of cool stuff. So, um, I think she has like a swim line or something like that that I wanted to check out once upon a time. So it's cool to see that rep when we do have it.
100%. And luckily, we're getting more fortunate. Like we have Barbie Ferreira
Yes.
nowadays, and I love her. And we have BB Rexa, and we're having more people. But it's like you said, when we were younger reading our books, there wasn't any of that. So I knew starting off that I needed to have that representation with my leads.
I love that. I do. Um, all right. So the last part is just kind of some fun questions. So what do you like to do when you're not writing other than reading?
Um, yeah, I do read quite a lot.
Yeah.
I will say, so I'm a special education teacher and I absolutely love my job. I work at a high school. And so when I'm not writing or reading, I am working there or I'm hanging out with my husband. We absolutely love the show The Challenge.
Hmm.
And a little too much, maybe,
Yeah.
but we watch that a lot. And in Mexican restaurants, I need queso at least once every other week.
Cool, cool. Um, okay. And so this is my favorite question. I always get my note app out because I've gotten some just amazing recommendations. So some books, authors that you would recommend.
Oh, yes. So my favorite read so far this year was One Dark Window by Rachel Gillick. I love, love, love that. Anything by Sophie Lark, as you could probably see up there. I have way too
Oh,
many Sophie Lark books.
I read
Um,
the There Are No Saints. I read those. I didn't read
mhm,
the one with what is it, Brutal Prince? That
mhm.
I haven't read that yet.
I finally got my mom to read that, and so we've been talking about it
Oh, that's
nonstop.
cool.
I love Tomi Adeyemi with the Children of Blood and Bone series. It's just perfection. Anything by Justina Ireland. My favorite is Dread Nation trilogy, not trilogy, duology, where it's basically if there was a zombie apocalypse following the Gettysburg. And it's so cool. And it typically historical fiction isn't my genre normally, but she knocks it out of the park.
That's cool.
Mhm.
I'll definitely have to check those out. Um, and so if you had to share some advice for aspiring authors or a younger you, what would you give and what would you say to them?
Don't expect your first book to be perfection. I mean, Wattpad, I was so fortunate because it gave me so many chances to have that first book, you know? And so learn from the mistakes. It's not going to be perfect the first time. It shouldn't be perfect the first time because if it is, there's nowhere to grow. So be okay with the mistakes, be okay that it's not absolute perfection, and just keep going regardless of it. Imposter syndrome sucks, but just keep going because my husband said it best. He's like, you're never going to stop having these ideas in your head. You're never going to stop writing. It's who you are. Might as well work work hard for it, you know, because it's not going anywhere.
It's beautiful, definitely for
Mhm.
sure. Do you play music while you write at all? Words, no words?
So typically, Phantom of the Opera is kind of my go-to in that regard. I listen to a lot of Billie Eilish. I don't know, it's just like I like Billie Eilish, don't get me wrong, but I only really love her when I'm writing because she just really helps me focus. Um, and then I do like listening to like classical music and white noise. So yeah, I can't have it be completely silent or else I get distracted by absolutely everything.
Mm. What is it do you think about Phantom of the Opera that kind of can get you out of a rut and like inspires you when you're writing?
I, I think it's just how I love beautifully broken characters. And I
Hmm.
think Phantom just epitomizes that. I always joke that if I ever see Gerard Butler, sorry husband, I love you, but because he had a way, I guess it was also the age when I got into
Hmm.
Phantom, where it just really changed my whole dynamic on how I viewed main male characters. And so I think he's just kind of the basis. Like I took a bit of EPLs off of Phantom because it was the first thing that really made me love the storytelling business in the male's point of view.
Hmm. And is it like just Phantom as far as Broadway, or are you a Broadway fan? Like, do you like other Broadway?
I love Les Mis.
Hmm.
That one's another big one. I love Chicago. Um, Into the Woods is pretty solid. Yeah, I really Les Mis and Phantom are probably my top two though for sure. And Six the musical. That one's been great.
Oh my God, I love Six. It's so good. We have my husband and I for his birthday last year I'm live in Connecticut, so the Bushnell has like a Broadway series and you can like sit in the same seat for like all the shows. And so I bought that and we saw Six with it. We saw Mrs. Doubtfire, we saw Hadestown. Um I mean, we saw Frozen last month. So many, But Hadestown definitely. I don't do you like Hadestown?
I haven't seen it yet.
I
And I
think
keep saying
I mean you would
everything on
clearly
TikTok.
get it.
I keep seeing it on TikTok because the actress who is in I'm totally blanking. It is The Summer I Turned Pretty. She's in
Mhm,
Hadestown right now, and I keep seeing it on TikTok, and I'm like, I
mhm.
need to watch it already.
It's so good. It's so good. It's definitely it's I mean, it's a reimagining, so I think
Hmm.
that it kind of like it works with your books, with the Greek mythology piece because it's definitely it's dark and it's just got some cool stuff to it. So whenever you watch it or listen to it, let me know your thoughts.
Yep, I definitely will.
Um, and so have you like traveled anywhere that has like like as research for your books, or has it anywhere in particular that inspires the setting?
That's a great question. I will say not with these books. These books were very much like I wanted to create a dystopian world a lot, even though I very much know the dystopian era has passed. But I very much wanted to just create a dystopian world. But my husband did take me to Nashville one time just so I could see their Parthenon, which was really cool. Otherwise, I live in St. Louis, Missouri, so I don't see too many books in little Midwest areas. So, I am writing right now a little romance book, and so I'm making sure to put that in St. Louis, just so then I get a little slice of my own area.
Cool, cool. And do you have any upcoming events, signings, anything going on for you or coming up?
Nope, not yet. I'm just making TikToks, hoping I get to that point where I can actually go to sightings and stuff. Although that'd be so cool to get to do
Yeah.
that one day.
I think it's such a cool experience, like, when you like meet the author and you're like you have their book and you give it to them and you just tell them like how much it means to you. Like it's such a like special experience. Like I think that that's so cool. Um,
Hmm.
and I'm sure and I hope that, when, you hear, from readers that how much they enjoyed your books, that kind of helps in that.
It's
Um, so the next book in the Ichor series comes out when?
this Friday.
Awesome.
Hmm.
So it definitely comes out soon. And then you said Crown, you're looking the sequel you're looking at winter.
Hmm.
And then the Grecian Trials, when does that start?
So it is projected to be around 150,000 words, so it's gonna be a big one. I'm about a third of the way done with writing that one. And I'm trying to plan like a big release for it because in my mind, I think it's my best work yet.
Awesome.
And I've sent bits to like my mom and my editor and stuff, and so far it's like a consensus that it might just be my best work. So I'm super excited for that to come out. I just want to get the Ichor series done first because I have Honorary that comes out this Friday, and then the final book in the series, which will be titled Hubris. I'm aiming for the summertime.
Well, it sounds like you have so much stuff going on and so much, as far as writing, you're doing so many different things. I'll be really interested to read your romance because obviously, like, it's not fantasy, so it's romance. So that'd be really cool. I'll be excited to see you kind of dive into that genre too. Um, so thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with me and talk about your books. And yeah, I'm honored to be part of your ARC team. So I can't wait to, obviously I read, Honorary already, but
Mhm.
so I'm so excited to continue reading for you. And like my little Percy Jackson heart is just like living on in your Greek reimaginings and retellings.
Well, I'm so happy to hear that.
All right. Thank you so much, Trish.
Of course, you have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.